We are all here and intended to see differently. All of us. All of us. We are all here to see with a different eye. And it is the very seeing, the very way that we look at the world that determines the way in which we are going to be able to fulfill our potential.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Human Design Coffee Talk, the podcast where we sip on wisdom, share experiments, and explore the nuance of living your design.
I'm Teresa Brenneman, a 2-4 emotional manifesting generator.
And I'm Brandy Gilmartin, a 4-6 sacral manifesting generator.
Each episode, we bring you insightful conversations and perspectives to help you integrate human design into your life.
This podcast is all about education, exploration, and of course, a little bit of tea. So grab your favorite cup, settle in, and join us for another brew of Human Design Coffee Talk.
Serving you a house blend of authenticity, empowerment, and a dash of provocation, this is the space where human design meets your daily grind.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Human Design Coffee Talk. Today we have Larry Armstead on, and who knows where this conversation is going to go. So I just want to preface all of our listeners today with we have no set topic. We're just gonna get right into it. For those of you watching on YouTube right now, we have Larry's chart up, so you can take a little peek at it. We will be taking it down just so you can see the guts of Larry here.
Here he is in all of his glory. Do you feel naked?
I don't. Exposed, maybe. Vulnerable, even.
Awesome. Well, yeah, everybody take a good look so I can get rid of this so we can get more intimate.
Yeah. Larry is a 6-2 manifesting generator, emotional authority.
Oof.
Happy to have another emotional on so we can go deep.
Oh, I'm currently in wave about all kinds of stuff, so we're good.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
Coffee Talk,
you
you like to
you
get
guys
very
have-
personal, so share as much as you want.
Well, we're in active wave, and it's also, the 6-line stuff. I've woken up to, well, it started last night, but it was like, I just kind of woke up and looked around, and I was like, there has to be more to life than this, spoken like a true 6-line. I was like, this can't be it. This really, this is it? And it has had me in wave since last night. And I'm currently at my fiance's. We just got engaged a couple weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm at his apartment, and he's like, what's the matter? And I'm like, if I try to explain it, I sound like a crazy person. But I'm like, there's just so much crashing. I'm like, you know what? This isn't right, and this isn't right, and this needs to change, and this needs to. How does no one see this but me? I'm there in the wave. So yeah, we can talk about any of that.
Was there something that sparked it, or was it just a strike of existential crisis?
It was just the existential dread. I looked around. I was like, you know what? The 9 to 5 has to resume again on Tuesday. I'm not happy there. I'm working on some other stuff, of course. MG Energy. I have 72 projects going on right now. And of course, a couple of them have me incomplete, not self. I'm like, they need to move it. They need to move it now. They need to be done. They need to be done. But the 952 is like, it's not happening right now. And I'm just kind of like, well, nothing's happening right now. Why is this all that there is? There has to be more. I feel like shouting from the rooftop, as it were, and just say, oh my God, what is happening? And nothing. That's the beautiful thing about the solar plexus. Nothing has to actually happen. I just have to wake up or just breathe and encounter some sort of a wave. I enjoy the feel-good waves. Those are always great, but these existential ones, which they happen quite frequently, these are the ones that really just like you have to really buckle down, I figure, and just sit into and not resist. Because all the waves for me, they're informational. They're, of course, they're crashing up against the shore and they're trying to bring about clarity. Just the crashing against the shore part is not fun. And that's kind of where I find myself right now.
Yeah, I think it's a misconception that just because we're accepting of our emotional process and we know that we can't do anything to change it when we're in it, that we don't experience challenges and pain within that. And like we could be cursing so much in that wave and still be accepting of it at the same time, or we could be experiencing some really intense emotions and seem so miserable on the surface, but also be accepting it at the same time. And I think you have the 3041 is very different than the waves that I experience. I have 3955, 1222, and 659, and I have gate 30 and 36. So I do experience, I touch into those frequencies. But
Yeah.
what I found is when you guys go low, you go so low, and it takes longer than my waves do to shift. And it's like you're stuck there until it wants to come out. It's really intense. So I have empathy for you.
I call it the undertow. It's like you're out in the middle of the ocean and the undertow brings you down. And the worst thing in the world you can do is try to fight against the undertow. You need to let it bring you all the way down and not fight it and not resist it, so you can actually find your bearings. And like you said, it is the worst thing because it's filled with these fantastical ideas and dreams and expectations and, it's everything there, right? And it's like giving yourself emotional permission to actually sort through the gunk, because a lot of it is smoke and mirrors, I find.
Yeah. Did you experience, I find with that channel and with the 3536, every time there's a new experience or something that has a lot of buildup to it, there tends to be a crash afterwards. And I know you just got engaged. Was there a huge buildup to getting engaged, and did you experience that crash?
It was a huge, well, it was that was a like 4.5 month long wave. It was one of those, I know he's who I'm going to marry, right? It was one of those yeah. It was, from our first date, I was like, it was the classic, you walk in and everything stops type thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And about, I guess, 4 or 5 months into us dating, I was kind of walking down the hall at my house and I was like, no one home. And I was like, I'm going to marry that man. And I'm like, what the hell? Who was, no. And, I've been speaking to my friend who is a 1-3 emotional manifester, and just kind of letting her know she's all about emotional maturity, emotional validation, emotional empathy, growing, all those things. And she was like, Larry, that popped up out of, your wave. How many times has it popped up? I'm like, every single point of the wave. And she was like, I'm not going to say anything, but isn't that interesting? And it was just one night I was actually here with him, and I made, artificial shores, so night times are my jam. And I go to bed maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, having to get up at 7 for work, right? And I went to bed at 2 o'clock that night on a work night and woke up at 4 and could not get back down. And I was like, what the hell? And it was just like everything, all the tension in that wave release. And it was just like, it's time. And I'm like, then of course I flew into a panic. I was like, oh my God, what? No. Oh, okay. And, asked him to marry me. He said yes, which is, of course, why I'm sitting here right now. And the come down from that way wasn't bad. It was actually, that kind of settled that night. But what's come off of that is like, now there's this internal churn, I guess, to, okay, now it's time to fulfill the other parts of your dreams, because you want this, of course, the expectations, right? You want this fantastical life for you guys, and you want to do this and you want to do those things. So that's where the detonation point for this wave is coming from. So in essence, you're right on it, but it's a little bit more layered than I even suspected that it would be, and it's a little bit more sneaky than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it usually is.
Yeah.
The solar plexus is so experiential and relational. I don't know. We don't know how it's going to show up. It's not logical whatsoever. So
not a little bit.
Yeah, this is so foreign to me.
I know. What are your thoughts? What's going through your mind?
I love hearing about the process, because it helps me understand everybody's, everybody around me that's emotional, and all the different waves and all the different experiences that people have of them, I really develop a lot more compassion for that process. But I'm just sitting here like, the reason that I didn't marry my husband right away is because he's emotional. Like
Yeah.
and just watching this, it's so unfamiliar to me. But it's truly amazing to hear you guys describe it, to hear the process.
Yeah.
And all I'm thinking is like, when you were talking about the undertow and like being pulled under the undertow, I'm like, that is so like appropriate for the experiential way.
Hmm.
You have to experience it all. And from what I'm hearing you say about your wave is that you do have to allow yourself to experience it to the fullest.
Yeah, because I mean, I found that if I resist the actual feeling and just going straight in, I always say to people, pre-human design actually, because I've been a coach for forever. You got to jump into the 15-foot into the pool and just swim down to where you can stand up. Um, and that's kind of been my experience this entire time, just having to jump into the deepest of it all and just let it without resistance pull you under. Because what other way are you going to learn? What other way you're going to grow? What other way are you going to expand if you don't?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love hearing people with fully conscious emotional channels describe the experience because
Mhm.
mine are mostly all unconscious and you just have you have words that I usually can't find for it because for me it just kind of feels like this foreign thing happening, and over the years I've developed words for it, but
Yeah.
it's so clear when I hear somebody with a fully conscious channel. It's like, yeah, this is exactly what
Yep.
it feels like, and then I have an aha moment from that.
And how do you? I'm going to ask you, Teresa. How do you? You said you have the 36. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about the 36?
I mean, I have it in my incarnation cross too. It's in my
Ooh.
design sun. So it's, it's part of the cross of Eden. And I've learned to appreciate it when I look at it through that lens of it being a part of my cross. But yeah, it's like if I'm not experiencing my own internal crisis, which I do at least once a week, maybe
Mhm.
like what
Yeah.
you're describing, this existential crisis that you're describing, I have that probably once a week, but it's just not as long as what and like intense as what you're describing. It'll be like I'll cry for 30 minutes about it and then I'm like, okay, carry on,
Mhm.
but it
Mhm.
usually is that type of questioning my existence, questioning my reality, questioning what I'm doing, that kind of thing. And so that would be my own internal crisis. But I found in my external reality, I am constantly helping other people deal with crisis, and not even just in my work as a coach, but I work at a restaurant part-time and with my friends. Like I had a friend call me the other day and was like, I need a parts work session ASAP. I'm like, I'll be right over. It's the kind of thing where I kind of thrive in those environments. Like when people are experiencing a crisis, I just show up and I know how to handle it usually when it's
Yeah.
like some kind of emotional crisis.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say
Yep.
so much from a practical standpoint. If your tire has a flat, I'm not going to show up and fix your tire for you. But when it comes to emotional crisis, I usually have the right tools in my toolbox to help people through those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I have 36 as well. In my Jupiter conscious, but I notice that same thing. People come to me with crisis all the time. And I'm like, I feel smooth as a cucumber with it, So
Yeah.
Teresa
Yeah.
and I have talked about this before, like sorry, I have dogs and apparently I have dog hair. Um, Teresa and I have talked about this before, how we witness it like when it's in the conscious sun or when it's like in a strong placement in the transits, and we notice crisis in other people and how they can't handle it as gracefully.
Yeah.
Teresa and I also both have 22, but there's just this like noticing of how easy or not, I don't want to say easy, how smooth we can handle crisis where it's not like disruptive. And
Yeah.
watching other people without it, and maybe it swings into the transits and it kind of flips them.
Yeah. For me, I'm almost motorized by it in a non-HD way, right? But I'm almost motorized it like it's like there's a crisis, call Larry, and I'm like, okay, I was ready for this. Come on, let's do it.
I was born for this.
Yes, let's do it. And growing up, it always bothered me that all my friends, all my family, something's going down, call Larry, he'll know what to do. Like it killed me. But once I began doing my own healing work and delving into all the things with spirituality that I do, and like now I have the people coming to me and coaching clients. I have friends coming to me and they're like, oh, can we do some shadow work? Can we do some parts work? Can we do some inner child work? Can we do all of this work? And I'm like, yeah. And I think one of the most amazing things about the 36 is I call it the magnifier, because you can literally walk in and see it. You're like, how do y'all not see what's happening right here? Like it's as plain as the nose on your face. I don't know why this is happening. I'm like, I do. It's because you haven't let yourself do da 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 da. And they're like, and then you see the aha moment go off in their eyes, right? And it's like, how did y'all not see that? And I'm like, okay, is that the sixth thing that I'm doing? But it sounds like it's a tenet or a prerequisite of the 36 that people just don't see what's right here. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is it right here. Look at that. You see that? That's what you're avoiding. That's what you're not feeling. That's what's going on. Yeah.
The darkening of the light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
We're like, oh, you're only looking at the light. Let's bring some of this darkness in because you're not seeing it.
Absolutely.
Like it's there. Right there.
Absolutely.
It's the elephant in the room to us.
Correct.
Hello. It's right there.
How do you not? And it's so funny because my partner loves elephants, so I'm sitting here looking at 3 right now on the headboard of the bedroom right now. So you're right on it, right?
Amazing. That is amazing. Okay, switching gears here a little bit. I feel like you should intro yourself a little bit to our audience for people that don't know you. What's your deal?
Yes.
What's your story?
Yes.
Elaborate as much as you want.
Larry?
Where did this guy come from? That's the big question that everyone has asked me in the human design community. Where the hell did you come from? And I'm like, I've been out here for a while, but so so I'm 5 years into my experiment, right? But this all started, like I said, 5 years ago, right? And I was in a long-term relationship at that point, and I was doing all of my things. I had written a book. Hilarious. Someone in HD brought the awareness to me. It's called "Where's My Pizza? How to Use the Power of Expectation to Create the Life You Want." I'm like, of course, it would be a book about expectation with me in the 4130, right?
Hilarious.
Right. So I'm like, so your design is always working, even if you don't know what design is, right?
Absolutely.
And I wrote that book and I was coaching people, but it just didn't feel right. Like I was like, I'm near it, but I'm not right on it. So I burned everything down. I closed my website. I closed all my social channels, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna chill here. And I'm sitting here. I'm doing my tarot, oracle, law of one, A Course in Miracles, any spiritual and emotional thing that you can put your hands on. I'm like in there.
Yep.
And my best friend, she's a 1-3 emotional manifestor. She said, "Hey Larry, have you ever heard of this thing called human design?" And I'm like, "Listen, Michelle, I have A Course in Miracles, I have tarot, I have oracle." I mean, of course I went on, fully open ego, right? I was like, I have all these things and I can prove to you why I don't need another spiritual system, right?
Can relate.
And she's like, yes, absolutely. And she's like, okay, well, I'm not going to stop talking about it. I'm like, of course you're not going to stop talking about it. And every time we would talk, she would say, well, it's because you have, an open head and, your ajna is undefined. I'm like, first of all, the ajna doesn't work like that, because if you look in traditional chakra, like I'm going there with her, right? And she's like, well, it's your G center, Larry. And I'm like, what is G spot? No, G, no, it's a G. So I'm there. And for years, I mean, I actively resisted. So I can now look back on it. I'm like, the 952 said it ain't time yet. And one night I'm going through I've just done some amazing quartz work. Like I am in the floor with some realizations and letting those pieces of me talk that were fragmented off, and doing some integration stuff. And I finally get up off the floor and I look, because I downloaded the app because she kept on like insisting I needed to download the app. So I downloaded the app And I finally opened up the app at like 3 a.m, and I'm like, huh? Oh my God. Like it took my breath. And I was like, there I am. Oh my God, there I am. Because the biggest turning point or the biggest light bulb moment in human design for me was the hermit. And my entire life, I always needed space. I come from an amazingly large family. Like we have to rent out a banquet hall for Christmas and Thanksgiving. And when we would have like my nieces and nephews, and there's now 38 of those, come over and like spend the night growing up when I was still living at home, I would be instantly frustrated and annoyed that these people are in my environment, get them out. And I would have to put a door between us. And I'm like, do not come into this room unless you knock on the door. And if I don't answer, don't come in. And it was just like, I needed this little cocoon of time. And I was always told by my family, don't be like that. You shouldn't be like that. And I'm like, I don't know why I need this alone time like I do, but I do. And that was the turning point that night when I saw that, oh my God, you're built for, you need the alone time. It's integration time. It's to process all of this stuff. And I was like, that's what brought tears to me that night. I was like, oh my God, you're not crazy. All of these years of people telling you that you should be another way, but you literally can't force yourself to be another way if you tried. It's been sitting here the entire time. And then I was like, okay, so what else is sitting here? And I went straight into HD, but I did it in classic MG mode, right? I did it in a way that was like, well, I'm not going to read my chart. I'm going to read and figure out the charts of everyone else around me.
Yep.
Because I need to poke a hole into this and make sure this is not real. And so I went around to everyone in my life, got birth times, got everything, and I would start telling people, this is what's going on here. And I'm like, someone's going to tell me I'm absolutely 100% wrong. And no one did. Everyone was like, in fact, it was like, oh my God, big wide eyes. Oh my God, how did you know this? And I'm like, it just says it right. Okay. And then I finally got up the courage to take apart my own chart. And when I took apart that chart, I took apart circuitry. I literally, there's probably a 200-page document on my iPad with my iPencil that I just like literally circled and just broke apart. And I was like, holy shit, it's like looking under the hood of the car. And there I am. And from there, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to see if there's any guys in human design, because for me, I didn't see any men around. I saw, mostly women around. And my business coach, who is a projector, told me about Jonah. And she was like, have you ever heard of Jonah? I was like, no, I don't know any men in human design. And she was like, why don't you send him a message? And I sent him a message. I said, the title of the message was, oh my God, another guy in human design. And we began talking. And he was like, I kind of shared with him what I do with human design, which I've termed divine human design. And he was like, I want you to come out to, the High Desert Human Design Conference and speak. And I'm like, I don't think that's what you want, Jonah. I say a lot. I have a lot of 5 placing in my chart. I say a lot of heretical shit, even against Ra. I say some stuff that traditionalists aren't going to want to hear. He was like, that's exactly why you should be here. And I'm like, okay. And I went and I spoke, and the reception was incredible, unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. I had one person come up to me and said, I was leaving human design. This was it. This was my last conference. This was it, because everyone told me that my spiritual experiencing of everything was, by Ra was saying it was bullshit. And she was like, it's not bullshit. And I'm like, no, it's definitely not. Because that was what my presentation was for divine human design, showing you how to incorporate the spiritual stuff, not as an illusion, not as something to be thrown away, but as something that's actually real, driving, and present in human design. And that was the reception I got all week. And here we are, 4 or 5 months after the conference, and I'm still having people come to my inbox and be like, oh my God, I just watched your presentation. Thank you. And I'm also getting the response, where did you come from, dude? And I'm like, I've just been over here chilling and working the experiment, because I'm like, I'm not going to tell anybody to do something that I won't do myself. And I've just been working the experiment to see. I've been literally for 5 years trying to poke a hole in this. I'm like, I need one thing just to be incorrect, one thing not to be resonant, and then I'll know that this is some bullshit. And I can't find one thing. for anybody around me or myself. So I was like, okay, well, we're all in now, so let's do this thing.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge your perspective about men in human design and like how you're like, I can't find men in human design. Because in the Instagram world of human design, there's a lot of conversation about how men overpower in human design. So I
Wow.
I had a lot of joy when you said that, because I was like, it's interesting to see the different perspectives of people. And that's exactly what it is. It's everybody's own lens that they're looking at things through, because there have been some big conversations about how men overpower in human design. And so for you
Wow.
to say like, where are the men in human design? I'm like, it's not all what, you know, we're taking in what other people are putting out, you know, through their lens. Through someone else's lens, they might say there's no women in human design, and then through your lens it's like
Yeah.
it's all women.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, I wonder if people say that, you know, I've never heard anybody say that it's all men in human design. I've just heard them say
Male dominated.
the few that are in it have really big followings and almost
Yeah.
cult-like followings.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like a power. I mean, I'm not power view.
Yeah.
Larry's power view. Maybe,
I am.
maybe
Yeah.
he can talk about it. But it's like, and I'm sure you've seen how there are some men that do have these kind of like cult-like followings and
Mhm.
these huge presences, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing unless they're abusing that power, you know.
Mhm.
But I think some women are just making the observation that that power might be being abused, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I mean, and I think for me, one of the biggest things in like a lot of my deconditioning and healing journey was realizing that growing up in the Midwest, you know, you could, as a Black gay male in the Midwest growing up, I never felt comfortable with men, right? All of my trust was put, like, women were safe for me. So of course I'm going to gravitate and see only women, right, in
Mhm.
anything that I do, right? Because women felt safe, right? And so now that I've done the work to kind of integrate a lot of that, why don't you trust men? Why aren't men safe? You know, I've been able to open up, you know, myself to attract, you know, someone I'm going to marry. And I have a lot more men that I talk to, that are in my phone, that I text, that I'm around, and it doesn't feel like I'm shrinking in a corner, because that's the way that it used to feel for me emotionally, that I'm just in a corner. I'm like, I don't belong with these people. But I would find a woman, even growing up, you know, little girls on the playground, right? I would find the girls and I would be like, oh, I can breathe. Like there was that realization of like, I can finally exhale, I can be comfortable here. And there was always a protection and a nurturing aspect that I got from like the divine feminine aspect of all women, right? Whereas with men, I grew up feeling completely threatened and not quite part of the pack, right? I felt completely ostracized there. And I was like, I don't have anything in common with you people. And but with the women, I'm like, they speak my language. They're talking with feeling, they're talking with emotions. And you know, you're told growing up in the Midwest, you're a boy, you don't be a man up. And I'm like, I can man up. It doesn't change the fact that I'm fucking in pain right now.
Yep.
And, you know, that's been the big thing for me, realizing that we're all everywhere. And, you know, there's a lot of not self walking around among everybody. I mean, my brother is emotionally defined, but you would never know it because he's man up, be a man. We don't do this. And it's like, but if you get him on a one on one conversation, he melts. And there's this big puddle of emotion sitting there, but he can't show it because he's been taught and conditioned to walk around in not self.
Yep. I absolutely do not subscribe to the belief that men are not emotional, or even like prior to human design, because I used to be a body worker and I would have full grown men, football players, cry on my massage table. And I just don't think that's really the case. I think it's absolutely our conditioning. I think men can have just as much emotional depth and emotional availability as women. It's just, it might show up a little differently, but I think that's largely to do with conditioning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how beautiful for you to be a 6 line and be a role model, and now being able to call in different men into your life and to be able to role model how to be emotionally connected to yourself.
And I'll tell you, that sixth line is a blessing and a curse at times.
Yeah.
Because just sitting with it, it is, I don't know, it's like there's a certain echo on the sixth line that says, yeah, but I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be, I didn't ask for all these eyes to be coming this direction. There are times that I'm like, leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
But I also realize the necessity that if, the collective, if the tribe, even if the individuals don't have something to look toward, to look at, then, there are certain pieces of the hexagram that don't actually fully work. Every part
Mhm.
needs each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Preach on that sixth line.
Yeah, I saw you vigorously nodding your head over there. What was
Oh,
coming up for you?
just all that. Like, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this. I'm six line body. Larry, you're six line personality. There is a difference, but it is very much like, why are you coming to me? Like for me, it being unconscious, I'm like, I don't, you want to do what I'm doing? What? I don't know what I'm doing.
Why are you watching me?
Why are you looking at me? Why do you think I know what I'm doing? I don't even know what I want to be when I grow up yet.
Yep. 100% of that. I
I
mean,
don't even know what I want to be when I grow up. And people are
yeah.
like, "Oh, but you have inner space and you do human science stuff and blah 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 and you and Teresa have coffee talk and you're like doing stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, but there's this little person inside of me that's like, what are we going to be when we grow up?"
Same, same, same.
But
You know,
then on the
I
flip side of that, it's like the first 30 years were like, I'm an adult.
that that
I
I'm
know
Got
like,
it
well,
all
exactly
figured
what
out.
I know exactly what I'm gonna be when I grow up. It's like we age in reverse and then
Benjamin
50
Button
comes.
syndrome.
Yeah. And then
yeah.
yeah.
And it's almost like you throw that 36 on top of it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like it almost forces us to do like accelerated growth, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because we're dealing with stuff that we have no business dealing with. Like there are things that I've seen and dealt with in, managing crisis that I wouldn't wish on anyone. Like there are things that I saw that little kids should not see.
Yeah.
Um, and it forces like I grow up, right? And it forces like I just heard from a cousin who I haven't heard from in 2 years. She called me just randomly, and she was like, "I'm ready to do the work now. You've been talking about this stuff for years." And da da da. And I was like, "Wait, have I? When did we talk last?" She was like, "Well, you seem to have it all figured out." And I was like, "Oh," I
You're
was
like,
like,
did I
"No, I
say
don't."
that?
At any, and I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I'm like, at any given moment, when have I told you I had this figured out? I see things. I have some spiritual stuff, but even then, I'm like, well, there's just so much. I haven't even like touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Or
And,
people
and I,
will say, like, you said this thing and it was just like changed my life. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm saying half the time. What
yep.
that you held on to that thing? That's a pretty cool thing.
My favorite thing to say is, I'm like, I said that. Tell me what I said.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shut up. I said that. Damn, I'm
I
good.
think that's a both thing, like a second line and a sixth line thing. Like you got, at both of you guys being second lines, you're not sure how amazing you are at things, and then with the
Mhm,
sixth line, here we are just like living, role modeling, not even realizing we're doing it.
mhm.
And people are like, oh, and you're like, what? It is that almost like, don't look at me. It's almost kind of second liney.
Yeah.
Like, no, I just want to observe. And especially in this roof life right now. Like,
Oh my gosh. You have to have a good damn reason to call me off the roof right now. I mean,
mhm.
it has to be like great to calm me down. And that's why like people asked me, when they come to me for coaching for one-on-one, they're always saying, that what can you offer me? And I'm like, listen, I have nothing to offer you. I have nothing to give you. um, I don't know what is going to be what in your coaching session until I get you in front of me. Like all that
Mhm.
integrated circuitry that I have over there,
Mhm.
I'm like,
Mhm.
I have no idea what's going to happen in your coaching session until I get you in front of me. I can't say that we're going to work on this, or that. I literally have to have you in front of me, and
Yeah.
what comes from out of me will come out of me at that point.
Yeah, Teresa and I have talked about this with, integration circuitry, which Teresa and I both have, and then rightness. It's like
Hmm.
I have no idea until I'm sitting in front of you.
Mhm.
Hmm. And it's pretty much probably why I'm about to like burn down my website again and
Mm.
redo it, because there are certain promises that are on my website. I'm like, we're going to work on this and we're going to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
Like,
that's
not
not
anymore.
correct. That's not correct, because at any given moment, I have no idea what I'm going to work on with you. Like, I have a couple coaching clients this week, and they're like, what are we working on this week? And I'm like, talk to me when we get in session, and I'll let you know when we're in session.
Mhm.
Because I can't plan that we're going to do parts work, or we're going to do inner child, or we're going to go shadow, or we're going to go just strict HD, or we're going to go, the whole spiritual, or we're going to go just deep into the emotion stuff. I have no effing clue. And I don't say that in a way that's like, I don't know what I'm doing or I'm not good at what I do. I'm saying
Mhm.
I literally just don't know until I have you in front of me. And I'm like, oh, you didn't hear what you just said? Okay, this is what you just said. Okay, and I'm going to go with that.
Mhm.
Mm.
And I figure once that happens, every time they're like, "How do you do this stuff?" And I'm like, again, I don't know. It's how do you not see it? So yeah, that's kind of how I approach all that stuff as well.
I love it. I can so relate. That is validating, because I feel like
Yeah.
so many coaches out there just have these like plans and, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to get there. And I can totally relate to wanting to completely burn down your website and change it after doing a certain amount of deconditioning, because it's like you kind of realize, especially with an open ego, that maybe that was all just my open ego trying to compensate and try to give a promise to somebody when I actually have no idea what's going to happen when we get into session.
Absolutely, 100%. That having a fully open ego, good God, that has been the energy center that I say echoes around every single energy center in the body graph. There
Mm.
are echoes of the ego even in the defined centers that I have. I mean, it echoes and shows up there, and it's almost you almost like are shocked when you stop and listen to what you're saying, because I'm like, oh, I just heard that. Or I'll have a couple of friends say, you just said that they're going to need to prove to me why they want to work with you as a coach, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I did not, but thank you. Because I figure the way that I explained especially a fully open center, is that it works as a two-way mirror. Not only is it, on one side that I need to prove or I need to be good enough, but at the same time, people need to prove to me and they need to show me that they are good enough when they come into my energy
Mm.
space.
Mm.
And once I had that realization in a grocery store of all places, um, it was just like, oh, this is showing up everywhere, because and then it'll piggyback on the wave, or it'll piggyback on my sacral response, or it'll piggyback on root pressure. It'll do all of those things, and you can hear the echo of it. It's not as strong, but you can hear the echo of it just like bouncing around everything. And it is the most, I say it for me, just because my experience, right? It is probably one of the most challenging energy centers to have to work with, being fully open.
I agree. I mean, I have a completely open head. Uh, do you have any? Oh, you don't even have anything
I,
pointing at your ego.
mm-mm.
Mm.
You got
And I have a fully
nothing.
open head too, and fully
Yeah.
open head as well.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say, like, I have an open ego from human design standpoint, but I have 3 gates pointing at my ego.
Pointing.
So there is
Mhm.
something there. There's
Hmm.
something that can be concentrated, but it's so interesting hearing somebody with a completely open, like nothing even pointing. 'Cause
Not
there's
a
just
thing in the
no
world.
consistency there for you whatsoever.
Mm-mm. And my fiance, fully defined ego.
Mm.
Like, he's all
Bees to
hooked up there.
honey, dude. Do you attract defined egos like nobody's business? Because I'm like, I thought y'all were in the
Oh
minority of the population, and I'm surrounded by them.
no, I think I collect them like they're like trading cards. Like,
Same.
I need a little bit of something over here, and a little bit of this over there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. My son is completely open ego, and our whole household's defined. His father's defined. My mother's defined. All the people he's around all the time are defined. And so I'm just like, no, I'm just watching it like,
That's why him and I are friends. Because we have similar childhoods in that way. My
Yeah.
entire family, my brother, my mom, and my dad defined egos. So
Same.
I know how he
same.
feels.
Yeah.
It's like a sick, cruel joke from the universe. Like, let's just plop you in here. But I also get from a mechanical standpoint why we need to be in that space.
Correct. There's a whole gift of that because it's, you know, that openness is like kind of almost a water faucet. I can turn it on and off. I get to decide the level of good enoughness or proving or not, or all those things. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. But I mean, granted, with the wave, it doesn't feel good. But you know, I ultimately, as RuPaul says on RuPaul's Drag Race, I can consult with the judges. I can consult with, you know, my body graph, but the final decision is going to be up, you know, to that strategy and authority of mine to make.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful once you get to that place of realization.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you talk about just rewinding a bit when you were talking about making promises, like on like wanting to burn down your website because you guys maybe recognize that you've put things in there like, oh no, I've deconditioned that. It's interesting for me as a defined ego to like that's one of the things that stops me from like I'm going to start working one-on-one with people in 2 weeks. And what I was really struggling with is all these people want these promises and I cannot make them. I cannot promise these things that people want. I don't know until you're in front of me. I have XYZ tools. I muscle test to see what tools we're going to use and we go from there, but I can't promise anything because I mean, not because I can't, but because the expectation, and I know that I'd have to fulfill that. So, and then I would just willpower myself to fulfill that promise, you know?
See, that's a healthy defined ego, though. A healthy defined ego knows what they're capable of. And I think that's also a misconception is that defined egos, if they make a promise, they're going to follow through. And yeah, you might kill yourself trying to do that. But I've seen plenty of defined egos make willy-nilly promises and not follow through because they don't know what they're capable of. And that's kind of where we come in. If I'm having a conversation with a defined ego and they're like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to do this and I can follow through on this. I'm like, are you sure about that? Do you really have the willpower for that? Don't tell anybody that you're going to do it unless you for sure have a yes from your authority. So it's not just the open egos out here making promises and not following through. I think the defined egos might get burned a little more for it because people are kind of like expecting them to be following through and you might have that reputation already, but we're not the only ones. It's all about just like what's healthy and what's not healthy, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing that I, you know, I tell my fiance, because what will happen is what I've witnessed in him, at least, is the defined ego will make a promise and he, you know, he has a fully defined root as well. And then it'll make a promise that then his defined root has to make room to actually resist. And then it generates in that loop, it generates anxiety that he can't break himself out of. And I'm like, but you created it. You literally create, but he's open emotionally, right? So he's missing that little piece right there. And I'm like, you created the promise, then you then have to build yourself to resist. And now you're in anxiety and you can't figure out why. This is why. And, you know, and it's the thing is he's also an MG. He's a 4-1. And like, I can't tell him. He just has to see it. And, you know, because he'll frequently say, because, you know, he's in his resistance about HD, but, you know, the 4-1 just has to be around to soak it up.
Yeah.
And he's listening a lot more than I think that I give him credit for. Like he said something to me the other day and it was like, so my sacral said no. And I'm like, that is the sexiest thing you've ever said to me.
Ooh.
Like he heard it. He said, mm-mm. And I was like, he's like, well, that was my sacral. My sacral said no, right? I'm like, yeah, it did.
Oh
Say
my
it again.
God. Don't stop.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Foreplay. That's foreplay.
My husband
Absolutely.
did something similar. We were shopping in Costco. He's like, I'm going to go see what I respond to in this aisle. And I was like, oh.
You're like, hey.
Take your clothes off right now in Costco.
Right. Yeah, that's right. You go respond to that. You come back with a response.
Go respond.
That's how it is with my husband when he doesn't say yes to everybody. Like when he doesn't act like a generator and he like waits and I'll hear him like get off a phone call because somebody will call him and be like, hey, can you do this thing? And he'll be like, oh, let me get back to you. And he gets off the phone. I'm like, oh, that's the hottest thing I've ever seen.
Riding
Oh,
your
it's not just
emotional
me.
wave.
Okay, so-
You're unavailable as a projector.
What?
that is the greatest thing I've ever heard. I'm like, so it's not just me. Okay, great.
Uh-uh.
I think it's just empowerment is sexy,
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like
Yes.
when
Yes.
I don't even care what language they were to use. Obviously, it's like cute that they use human design language because it shows that we've
Yes.
had some kind of influence on them. But if he was just like, oh, well, whatever language that they want to use, it's just that
I'm gonna go
feeling
see what
empowered
like
in
pops
yourself.
out to me.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you're communicating with your body. That's hot. And you're feeling empowered in yourself to listen to your body. That's also hot.
Yes.
And that's the thing that I try to get around to most people, like whether it's human design that's found you, whether it's parts work, whether it's the tarot, whether it's oracle, whether it's emotional experience, whatever it is that you have found that has put you squarely back in your body in your experience is the sexiest thing in the absolute world, because you're taking your power back, because the propensity is to give it away.
Yeah.
Right? We give it away to doctors, we give it away to mechanics, we give it away to teachers, we give it away to police. But the moment someone says, no, this doesn't feel right for me, I can't tell you why. Number one, it kind of shows you that your design is churning in the background, whether you know it or not, right? But even discounting that, it is someone being squarely in their experience and their body and their healing journey, which doesn't look like yours. Like, I was very firm that healing journeys, they go this way. They do not. They go the way that they are supposed to go.
Yep.
And people will pick up the tools and the experiences that they're supposed to pick up along the way, and it will not look like yours. It might be familiar. It might be exactly like yours. It may be nothing like yours. But the fact that you have someone sitting in front of you, that especially that you love, right? That is squarely in their body and squarely in their experience. And they might not even have words for it, but they can talk about it. And they just talk about it. And they're like, I don't know how I know this. I don't know why I'm doing this. One of the greatest things, one of the most rewarding things that you can ever come across, I think.
100%.
Yeah.
That's my love language.
Yes.
Yes.
You being
Yeah.
empowered and embodied in your experience. That's my love language.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
So good. Okay. I have some hot questions for you. So switching
Oh.
gears a little bit.
Okay.
When you did my tarot reading for me, by the way, just to throw it out there, I'm a tarot reader. Larry's a tarot reader. I firmly believe in people getting who they need as a reader, though, and being aligned with the correct person. And I can fully recommend Larry to anybody that feels connected to him, and like blew my socks off, but in a very grounded way, in a very humble way. It was one of the best readings I've ever had. And like, I'm not even joking, just because
Thank
you're
you.
so integrated with human design. And I don't know too many other tarot readers off the top of my head that are that, number one, I can vouch for, that I've had an experience with, but also that is so embodied and not just like giving blind advice and that kind of thing. Like, it really comes from an embodied place. So just
Same.
wanted to throw that out there.
Before you ask your question, I want to pop off and just also back that up. I had a tarot reading with Larry, and it was, first of all, I'm going to preface this with, I'm a very intuitive person. I work a lot with very intuitive people in my line of work, in my business. I don't like knowing the future. I shy away. If you are somebody who shies away from tarot because you have a fear, and I have gate 28 twice and all this other shit going on that just kind of makes me I like to experience my life as me. I like to know, like, when it comes, right? I like to wait to respond. So I was very perplexed when I had a response to have a reading with you, Larry, because I don't normally gravitate towards those things. I'll pull my own tarot card for like the day or whatever, but I had a true response, and I'm telling you what, it was incredible. There is something that comes up from that reading for me at least once a day where I just like click back to it. And I'm
Same.
like, ah. And I mean, you even brought in my environment because I asked about a move that I was making, and this like weird little piece of wisdom of how a mobile home is an artificial shore, and I had never thought about it before, and I shit you not. So I am living in that place. I don't know what that was. That was a ghost. This
Wait,
just
wave, Cody. You're on camera.
this jar just dropped. Anyway, I'm in that place now, and I feel like I'm in my environment. I feel alive. I
Yeah.
feel healthy. I feel vitality. I feel I could cry. I never looked at it like that. And even without the words of human design. But however, that reading that you gave me was from such a grounded place and from a place that made me feel empowered. You did not try to act like my guru or tell like I didn't feel like I needed you for the answer. You were just like showing me how to put my hands on the steering wheel.
Oh my gosh, that.
You were reminding me of 10 and 2.
My gosh, that level of feedback from you guys.
And I
I
was
never.
and I was just like, fuck, that was amazing.
The same thing for me. I talked to so many people about it because I feel like as an emotional, when we're really in a wave and, emotional MG, and when I'm responding to something or deciding if I'm going to respond to something based on my wave, it can be really challenging because you're just kind of like feeling like you're getting whipped around. And then sometimes you really know deep down what the answer is, but your mind is still afraid to make that decision or you're questioning it. And that's what I tell people tarot is really handy for when you're in your experiment is I feel like 100% of the time, at least since I really entered into my experiment, tarot just reflects back my own authority. But as a reader, I can't always read the cards for myself. Like I do have a practice. I use it for journaling and that kind of thing. But when it comes to my life decisions, I'm just like, Larry, tell me I'm making the right decision. And it was
like we're making the
so
decisions we're already making.
Yeah.
But I just need this confirmation that like, cause I'm making them from a here place and up here is going crazy.
Yes.
And the tarot reading brings it back down to like, that was, yes.
Like, you're good. Kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it kind of it susses out like if you're like, oh no, this is telling me you kind of probably made that decision from up here.
Yeah. Yeah. Which we know that too.
We do that. Yeah. We know that. We know that.
Absolutely.
So anyways,
I thank you guys for that feedback, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wanted to give you some props.
Can I go off on a 2-minute tangent, Teresa, before you ask your question? I just want to say that when we were on our call, we talked about the difference between a generator and an MG.
That was my question.
Oh,
because I was going to say it had nothing to do with the tarot reading, but I was just going to say Larry and I talked about this in our session. I just wanted to give him props before that. But.
Yes. And probably because this is at the top of me and Teresa's mind a lot because we are like, there is a fucking difference.
Yes, there is. 100% of it. Ask the question, then I'll chime in.
What's the difference?
Okay.
Through your perspective, the difference between generators and manifesting generators. And I want to say this is something I have flip-flopped on. Do we deserve our own? I don't even think it's a deserving thing. Do we need our own section in a book? Like Shaitan Parkin gives manifesting generators their own section. I see this on Instagram a lot where people will, be writing posts for each type and the MG will get its own little section. It won't always be lumped into generators. Do we need that much of differentiation? And I feel like at this point, I've kind of come back to yes. For a long time, I was a no to that. And I was like, no, we're just like generators, da da da. And I'm not saying that we're our own type necessarily, but I think what's a nod to us is we function so differently, other than responding and being like having life force
in our aura.
And are enveloping an open aura. Absolutely. The mechanics, yes, at a mechanical foundational level are the same, but the way that we move through the world, the way that we function is so differently. So take it away, Larry.
Absolutely. So here's what I've always said. So in answer to their question, because of course I have a response to it. Yeah, we definitely do need our own posts. We definitely need our own sections in the books. And we definitely, I'll take it a step further and I'm working on it for us. We definitely need a safe space to land online.
Mm.
We don't, we have the manifestor community and, all projectors and all. We don't have a place for manifesting generators that is that big and that is that wide. And it's important because a lot of manifesting generators feel unseen. They feel like the throwaways is what I've heard of the design chart. They feel, invalidated. They don't feel as important or needed in the human experience as other energy types. And I'm like, if you weren't needed in the human experience, you wouldn't be in the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
But what I always tell people are, they're like, well, you're not your own energy type. I'll agree with you 100%. I have no problem with that statement. What I do have a statement with is, or problem with, is this, that we're the same as generators. We are not. And it takes a manifesting generator to understand that. And it's something even Ross said, each type should teach their own type.
Mm-hmm.
Because only that own type can understand what it's like to be in that own type's form, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always say this. Yes, we're a generator type. Just like white bread, wheat bread, and banana bread are all bread types. I'm not going to dispute that. Definitely all bread types. But I would not use banana bread to make a turkey sandwich with mayo and tomato and with all the things. No, I would not.
No.
Yes, it's a bread. It's absolutely a bread type. I will give you that.
It's in the bread aisle.
Correct.
We'll give you
the bread I'm making my sandwich with. Yeah. One's a dessert bread, one's a sandwich bread. And that's on the most basic level how I explain this to people. It's not even apples to oranges, right? Mm-hmm. It's bread to bread. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to use, pumpkin loaf to make, my grandmom's famous, turkey sandwiches or whatnot. I'm just not going to do that because I know. And listen, anybody that's taste right now, I'm not talking to you guys because someone with taste will poke a hole into this, right?
That's my favorite meal of growing up was banana bread turkey sandwiches.
Correct. That's all we had growing up. And what I'm saying is, there's certain things for certain types, right? I don't argue that that we're our own separate type. Our energy works different. The zipping and the speed of that energy is so different. And I think only another MG can keep up with another MG. Right? We do take these hard and fast pivots that you're like, wait, how did you? Oh, that's exactly how you got there. Yep, I'm with you. But I can sit here and talk to my emotional manifestor friend, and she's like, I don't even know. What are you talking about? How did you get there? And I'm like, if I'd been talking to Cody, he would have got it. And he's one of the only people, because I'm not surrounded by a lot of MGs. He's been one of the only people that is able to follow these zips and twists and turns. And he's like, how did you get there? And alternatively with him, we'll start on topic A and end up on topic R and then circle back around to B. And it's like, he's like, you follow that? I'm like, yeah. So, when Ross said each energy type needs to teach their own energy type, he ain't wrong. That's one thing I will agree with Ra on. It's another stuff I don't agree with him on. But yeah, absolutely. Bread types, banana bread versus white bread, not the same thing.
Not the same. Yeah, I feel like Brandy is my first best friend that I've had in the experiment, or even within the last probably 10 years of my life, that is an MG that I can validate, because of course I've looked up all my friends from the past and everything, and then my husband's an MG, but there's a synergy between us. And even when the three of us are together, where it's just it's like we're moving as one unit and we all kind of just understand what each other is doing. And I'm sure projectors feel this way too, when they all there's three of them together or whatever, there's just a weird synergy. And I also had a friend who's a pure generator that lived with us for a year, and she would even say, I cannot keep up with you guys. You guys are just moving a mile a minute. And I understand that that's also to our detriment sometimes. Every type has its own challenge. And, I reposted, how there's a Ra Uru Hu account on Instagram. I reposted a reel that they posted recently about the difference between MGs and generators in the workplace. And it seemed like some MGs were hot and bothered in the comments because Ra is, heretical and shocking. And I think it was hilarious what he said, because I've experienced what he said. Like, he was basically saying if you hire an MG and a generator at the same time, it's going to look like the MG is getting it a lot quicker and they're learning a lot faster. But then you're going to have to comb through their work and see all the mistakes they made because they were going too quickly. I worked at a wellness center for a little while, and I ended up running all of the employees' charts. Every single employee except for the general manager was an MG, and even the owners. And then the general manager was the only pure generator. And her job was literally just to fix our mistakes because we all were going too fast. And so I'm like, I've seen this in the workplace. This is absolutely true. And I do feel like the more we are aware of that within ourselves and the more we kind of decondition, there is some awareness of like, okay, I can go back and fix that mistake. I had a friend telling me she has an MG kid and he gets like really worked up when he makes a mistake and he does not want to go back and fix it. And that's how I was when I was little. I would get so frustrated. I'd be like, I don't want to fix it. But now as an adult, I'm like, especially if I'm in the right work or I'm engaging with the right activity, I don't mind going back and fixing it. I had to see what would happen by trying this quick paced thing or taking this shortcut. And that's part of our brilliance as well. And isn't that just the age old tale? It's like the thing that makes you brilliant is also the thing that challenges you. So.
Yeah. And we're
Absolutely.
aware as MGs that we make those mistakes.
Very.
Like even right now, right before we hopped on this podcast, I posted a reel on Inner Space's page. It has crossed my mind probably 10 times. I probably made a mistake somewhere.
Yep.
And even with my employees, I have all the charts of my employees. For a long time, it was just a bunch of MGs. And now we have, we just hired 4 new people. We have a projector coming in, a generator, an MG, and a manifester. And so it's like now we're like MGs are like super builders, right? So like in the building stages, and now it's just kind of like maintenance. So the space can hold the capacity of different aura types because we're not building. It's like we have things set in stone. My business partner is a generator, and she'll go in and be like, hey, did you notice this? Hey, did you forget about that? Hey. And we're like, oh,
Yeah.
This is
Thank
why all the
you.
types need each other.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I've even heard it at my 9 to 5. My first employee evaluation was, you're doing great. We just need you to slow down because you keep on leaving off stuff. And I'm like, and this is literally right before human design started for me. And I was, of course, it offended me. Oh, I'm not doing, but no, he was right. And it's one of my most favorite things to say because I'm like, again, it's churning in the background, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
So awareness is key. So absolutely, like you were saying, Teresa, we all need each other. We are even, and this is one heretical thing that I'll say, and I'll probably get some flack for it in school. But even the individualism that a lot of the manifestors experience, like we don't need anyone. I call bullshit on that.
Oh,
frequently.
100%. 100%.
Because I'm like, so you need no one. You absolutely need no one. No, we don't need anyone. Okay, so let's have you move to a desert, okay, or somewhere remote. Grow your own food, but you can't go buy the seeds anything because you need someone for that. Get all naked and afraid because you can't use the clothes. Build your own. I mean, you can just start poking holes in that. You absolutely do. Now, what you do need is you need time to center in your own energy. I will agree with that. But to say I don't need anyone for anything, no, because
I think that's the not self manifester. Like I would definitely argue that that's the not self.
Yeah, and I saw it a lot at the conference when we were there among manifestors, and I heard it a lot among the manifestors at that conference, and I was like, Larry, you're not here to fight that fight. Don't fight it. It's fine, Larry. Don't fight it. Because we're social species. We definitely need each other.
And I feel like manifestors, okay, hot take, maybe not, I don't know. Maybe some manifestors are aware of this. I'm friends with a few that I've definitely talked to about this. And some manifestors are so afraid of being rejected that they just go on this whole lone wolf tirade and say, well, I don't need anybody. And then they come to human design, and Ra even validates that in some of his lectures where he goes off about the manifestor being a lone wolf. And I'm sure there's truth to that, like to feeling like you are alone because maybe you function so differently than the people around you, or, you know, I'm sure there's truth to the feeling of that. However, we wouldn't have human design if it weren't for Ra employing other people and generators and projectors building it out to what it is. So there's just so many holes in that. And I think some of them are so afraid of rejection that they just start taking that on to protect themselves from being rejected, because the manifestors that have really let me in and that I've become close to, like, they are ooey gooey on the inside. And they might have this kind of harsh exterior. One of the owners of the restaurant I work at is a 3/5 emotional manifester. And I was talking to him the other night, and he was telling somebody how, like, he'll bring it up sometimes because I told him about his chart, because he asked me one time, why is everybody so afraid of me? And I said, because you have a closed aura. And and his wife's a generator, and so everybody goes to her for all the things they need, like employees and stuff. And he was like, but I don't get it. I'm not that scary. Like, da 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 da. And I'm like, you may be closed on the outside, but you are just a gummy bear on the inside. And he's like, no, no. So angry about it. Yeah. And then his wife's like, So yeah, I'm like, you were just crying literal tears an hour ago. Like, you are gooey. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard for a manifestor. I mean, like I said, my best friend is one, and they have to be really careful because it's really easy to take advantage of them.
Yes.
It's that power that they have in their aura, right? Especially once you get in, it's intoxicating to a lot of people. And that when they finally let someone in and they feel accepted and they feel embraced, right? They can kind of like they can let those walls down a little bit, and then people turn around and take advantage of it.
Yes.
So I can see where it builds on itself and then it falls on itself.
And talk about superhumans. I mean, I know MGs, we feel like superhumans sometimes, but when a manifestor is in an urge, they are working at 200% capacity. That is, MGs do not hold a candle to a manifestor actually in an urge. We just we still, even though we're like fast, we still have that like hum, that slow hum of the sacral and the sustainability of it. You know, if we operated the way that manifestors can, we wouldn't be sustainable. We wouldn't have the defined sacral. That's what keeps us sustainable. And so I could see how when you're close with a manifestor and you see them operating in an urge and you see what they're capable of, you could be like, oh, I want some of that. I need some of that, you know? And they have a lot to carry. And, you know, I don't know what your thoughts are about the whole like post 2027, we don't need manifestors, which I call bullshit on that for sure. Like, that is the most ridiculous thing. I understand what people are saying when they're saying it, and like how projectors and generators are going to need to work together, you know, and we've already been doing that, but maybe the manifestor won't have like the I'm trying to say this without sounding hierarchical, because I know some people argue that human design is hierarchical and it's supposed to be, and we need to top of the food chain, and like, I don't know how I feel about all that, but I don't necessarily look at it through the lens of hierarchy, or maybe it's like not self hierarchy where you think that one person is better than the other because they're at the top of the food chain. I think what Ra was trying to communicate is just that the leadership that projectors embody is going to be the leadership that is necessary post 2027. It doesn't mean that manifestors don't have a role, and it doesn't mean that they're not incredibly important still.
Absolutely. I mean, here's what I always say to people: if manifestors weren't going to be important, then they wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
Because the trek toward 2027 has already happened. Like, it's already started. That energy has already mounted. It started, for me, the earliest time that I can like foreseeably see it is like the civil rights movement, where everything starts heading towards 2027, right? Because, you know, since 1615, we've been under the cross of planning, and that's all we've known. Anybody that's lived since 1615 on, that's all your ancestors that you've been around. That's all your family. They've only known life to be this one certain way. And now it's all starting to unravel. COVID gave it a gut punch, right? And we see all this stuff happening. And it's like, because manifestors are here, no one walking this planet, whether you're a reflector, manifestor, MG, generator, projector, no matter what, you're on the planet, so you're a part of the human experience. You're not exempt of the human experience. Because I guarantee you that if a lava spring jumped up in your backyard right now and started spewing everything and burning everything down, the last thing on your mind would be, but I'm a manifestor. I shouldn't be doing this right now. You're going to grab what you need to grab, and you're going to go.
Yeah.
And you're going to go to safety. Yeah, absolutely. So everyone's necessary.
Everyone's necessary. Exactly. And nobody is better than the other. Leadership isn't better than something else. That's the thing too. I think because of how we're conditioned, or the not self world, or whatever, people think that like being the leader is actually like the most important thing. It's the same how people put so much emphasis on who our president is, when I'm like, our Congress is actually the one shaping our freaking country and taking control of our government. Like, the president is just one person, and people put so much emphasis on it. So it's interesting. Like, I feel like actually this is kind of an interesting topic. I saw this post on Instagram a couple weeks ago about projector superiority and this energy in the human design space. And I'm not saying all projectors. I'm just saying this person was sharing about how they feel like projectors kind of position them as superior, or as, they have something that we don't have. And yes, that's true. We all have different strengths again, but I almost feel like sometimes in the human design space, maybe if you were like struggling before you found human design, and I don't know what the projector experience is like, but maybe you see this thing and it's like really validating, and it kind of gives you a pump to your ego, and it makes you feel really good about yourself. And then you can easily swing to the other side of the pendulum and say, well, I have more power than you, or I have this and that, or position yourself above others because you're like, I'm a projector and blah, blah, blah. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Larry.
I mean, it's the thing that it's when we begin identifying with something, you can take anything, take human design out of the equation, right? If you take church, for example, you take any extracurricular activity that you find, it's when people identify with something, it becomes a part of who they are, it becomes a part of something that makes them feel good and brings them joy and everything. It's immediately validating, and it's immediately like, I found my space in the world. I found my little piece of the pie, right? And so of course you're going to pour everything into that, and you're going to glorify it, and you want everyone to say, look how great this thing is, and look how great this is, and how amazing this is, and how wonderful this is. But it's all part of the same whole. It's just a different representation of the same whole. But make no mistake, and this is the one thing that Ra says that I'm like, we all come from the same whole, right? We're all a spark of source trying to experience itself. So we're a source trying to understand source in human form, right? That's where the individuation comes in. Yeah. Because we do have to have individual experiences to bring back the individual experience to source itself, right? But we have to really recognize and understand that it's the identification that people are kind of taken away with. So it's not that the manifestor is superior, or that the projector is superior. You can even see it in human design. Break it down to your circuitry. The collective, the tribal, the individual, it all needs each other, because the individual is going to bring something that then, is going to be beneficial to the tribe, and tribe is going to bring something that the collective needs, and it's all going to work in this one big circle, right? And it's easy to get hypnotized by that dance, saying, oh, well, if it wasn't for me bringing anything individual, then the world wouldn't happen. Yeah, but that individual idea would die with you if you didn't share it with the tribe. And then it would die with the tribe if the collective didn't have it. So it's about seeing how all the pieces work together. There is no one superior piece. We need builders, we need workers, we need people in power. We don't need people in power. You need all of those things, and one of those things is not better than the other. They just simply are.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing for people to accept.
Oh, it's so true. That's such a good point about the identification too. And it's like, I think it's important to identify with our design when we first start deconditioning, because it is such a shattering and it's such a shift. And we almost need to step into that costume of like, especially I would imagine projectors, because it's such a different way of living than generators, and the way that the world teaches them to be. And they have to kind of step into this new costume of, okay, if if this is true and this is how I'm meant to move through the world, then I need to take this on as truth and take this on as my identity. But then I think the pendulum can swing too far and will be overly identified with something to where you don't let the design just do its thing. And like, that's where the mental side of it all comes in, because when you really see, like, let's say in the workplace, for example, and you see what happens when a projector is guiding a generator or multiple generators, it's not this like glamorous, I don't know. It's not like they're standing up on a podium and yelling at people and telling them what to do. I mean, I guess that might be more not self-manifester, but it's very subtle, and there is no talk about, oh, you're the leader, so you're going to guide us and you're going to tell us what to do. It's incredibly subtle and under the radar. And I don't know. I don't know if some people in human design who haven't experienced that, like in a workplace, maybe because they've just read about it in design and they don't actually know what it looks like. Because I know that was me for a long time. I was like, how does it actually look having a projector guide? Like, what does this look like in the real world, not just in theory in a human design book, or a lecture? And you really have to witness it and see it in order to grasp the subtlety of it and how the mechanics actually operate. And a lot of times there's no like real conversation around it. You just see it happen and it's like, oh, wow, cool.
Well, and that's where their strategy comes in too, right? Because you will recognize that person for that thing. And so, I think it's difficult. Living with a projector, I think it's difficult because I see him just being a projector. He's, recognized at work. People come to him for things and how we just interact. And, I think there's projectors that go like seeking that recognition, and that there's nothing wrong with that. But watching it play out in the real world, it just naturally happens when they're the right person to go to for the guidance for the thing. And so that's why letting people know like what you're up to as a projector, and really like going back to the basics, like mastering your systems, just doing your thing, the people will come to you. And in that post 2027 period, when we are being told, our minds are being told that projectors will move into roles of leadership, that will just be because they'll be recognized. It's not an automatic, like, we wake up January 1, 2027, and the projectors are just all leaders and they go into their work. They're like, well, now I'm the CEO. So
this is a birthright.
It's not a birthright.
It's not a birthright. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, you're yes manning yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize how people are glorifying it and they're romanticizing it, right?
Yeah.
And it's far from that, because we've been under this since 1615. So this is the way that it is now. It's all we've ever known. The amount of resistance that's going to be there, and the amount of turmoil that's going to happen, because it's the shifting of one thing to the next. People think, oh, it's just going to flip. No. There's a certain period that's right in there that you have to go through, because it's, it's the growing up. It's the switching out of things that have been here for hundreds of years. You don't think that even the non-projectors of the world are going to have a reaction, because this is the way it used to work. This is the way the world was set up at one point. Right. It's a complete shift of systems for everyone here, because if things don't work the way that they used to work, well, when I grew up, it worked this way. It doesn't work that way anymore. You don't think there's going to be a ton of resistance right there, and a ton of, okay, this is the new way of doing things. And I'm not saying that, oh my God, the world's going to be set on fire, and the stock market is going to crash, and we're going to have to fend for ourselves I'm not saying any of that, because I think there's a level of demonization and fear that wants to come with the 2027 mutation. The truth is, nobody know. The only
no idea.
People that are going to know are until we get there.
Yeah. Right.
And the reality is that it might start in 2027. Heck, the energy has been here since the 60s that I can feel, right? That doesn't mean in 2027, all the energy is going to come crashing and it's going to end right there. That just means that's where the starting line is. Us three, we will probably be in nursing homes before we start seeing some stuff like really, really go down and shift, right?
Yeah.
But make no mistake, it's happening.
Yeah. And for like through the lens of the way that I look at leadership is empowering the other people. It's not this like you were talking about hierarchy earlier, and it's not from this like command position. It's like almost like I visualize like an orchestra, you know, and the conductor is just conducting. And that's what I kind of see like projectors, like just conducting. You're just okay, you know, doing their thing with their hands. It's not like a big deal. It's not like they're the star of the show. The music is the star of the show. How that conductor can conduct the orchestra is going to make or break the show.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I heard a really good analogy. I think it was Michael Steinbeck Litvin. I'm pretty sure it was him that said this. But he would talk about energy like a river, and the generators are the literal water. Like we are the life force, and the manifestors would decide like the new direction that the life force is going to go. Maybe like, oh, we need to branch off and go in this direction instead. And the projectors are just coming in and subtly putting in like rocks in certain places so that the water flows better in the direction that it wants to go. The projectors can stand on the sidelines and see the direction that the water wants to flow. And it's flowing with such force that the water might not always like be doing that efficiently or knowing exactly where it wants to go. And the projectors are kind of just guiding the water to flow where it wants to go. And the reflectors are just on the side watching everything happen. And, you know, if anybody needs to ask the reflector for the feedback about the water, maybe it's reflecting the nature of the water. And I just thought that was so beautiful because it's such a subtle way of describing what projectors really do. It's so necessary. It's so important, but it's not this whole like big loud thing. It's just, oh, a rock could go there and make it more efficient. That water can go where it wants to go. It's like the projector can feel where the generator's energy wants to go, and it's just going to remind us of that.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful analogy. I'm stealing it.
Right? I know. I use it all the time now. Thanks, Mike.
Yes, absolutely.
Spoken from a 6'2" projector, right? And I think this is also perhaps I know Ra has made mention about how we're entering into a 6'2" age. Like the 6'2s are going to be the guides, you know, aside from type and all of that, but like just from a profile perspective, we're going to be looking to the 6'2s of like, what's going on, you know, because we really need that that objectivity and that humanity that the 6 line presents. It's just a very like going from a 5th line world to a 6 line world, I think is going to be very, very different.
100%. I mean, because, you know, as a 6 line, we, as Rock kind of said, you know, we're not really part of the hexagram. We kind of just that cracker on the top, right? So there's this level of attached detachment is what I call it, that, you know, the roof provides that, you know, and like I said, I'm comfortably up here on the roof, right? But it provides, it's necessary because we're able to look out of the horizon and see what's coming and see what's necessary and see what's needed. And not necessarily, I'm not here to tell you what to do. And that's the big thing for, you know, a balanced 6. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not saying do it this way. I'm like, okay, here's what I've seen up here. Here are the observations I have. There you go. Well, what do I do? Figure it out in a non-HD way, because I don't want someone to say, well, I have an open eyes, man. I don't over here. There's nothing to figure out. No. I can show you what we got. This is what I see up here. That's not working. This isn't working. This isn't working. But what do you do with it? Is what you do with it. And I think that's the way that we have to approach this. Even going, because if you listen to Ra's that lecture on the 6'2", scare the shit out of you if you're a 6'2".
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna die if I don't do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. Ra freaks all of us 6 lines out. Even just his 6 line lecture, I'm like, what?
I know plenty of older 6'2s that don't really seem to be. I mean, again, I'm not here to judge who's living their design and here who's not, but like I kind of judge it based upon how stressed out somebody is or how, you know, and I'm just saying, like, I know a few in their 70s that don't seem to be, you know, thriving necessarily. But...
And they didn't die falling off the roof, Ra.
You're safe, 6'2s. It's okay.
I breathe. It's going to be okay.
I'm like, shit.
He's so theatrical.
I'm not looking at my Chiron return date ever. Don't ever tell me.
And I mean, I'm sure there is some truth to that. Like I can think of like a 6 line that passed around that time, but that doesn't mean that's every 6
Well,
lines.
even getting up on the roof, the 27 Club, most of them are 6 2s and 4 6s. That's crazy. I looked up all their birth dates and birth charts, and I was like,
too.
"What? 6 lines, they're all dead. What?" 27. Yeah, that makes sense.
A lot of them have
This is gonna be fun.
A lot of them have strong format channels too.
Yeah.
Or like strong format energy, like a lot of hanging gates down there, channels or whatever.
Why can't there be another profile that has to like sit with this?
I mean, it eventually cycles back around to the ones, but we just get our time in the sun for a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard Jonah's analogy. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. How you were like, it has to be a lot to pull me off the roof. Jonah Dempsey has this analogy of 6 lines being on permanent vacation. And I'm married to a 6 line, and I'm not gonna lie, when I first listened to Jonah talk about that, I started bawling. I had a whole breakdown, and my husband and I had to have lots of conversations around this. I literally like made him listen to what Jonah said, and I had to emotionally process this because the way that he described it, I even like called Brandy and I was like crying, and the way that
I
he
had
described
my husband listen to it also because I was like, "You're living with a 6 line. You need to hear this."
It was just basically like 6 lines. Once they go through their Saturn return, they're so relieved to get through that first part of life that it's kind of like they've retired already and they're permanently on vacation. And that's what it can feel like to be on the roof, is like, don't bother me with your problems. Like, I'm on a vacation, I'm checked out, and if you want to have fun and you want to go have a new experience and like, go parasailing or whatever, be on vacation and lay on the beach together, I'm for that, but I don't want to know about your problems. And he kind of described it as how, like, if you're in a serious relationship with a 6 line, you just have to accept that. And it might just feel like you're on your own sometimes when you're going through something or when you're in your problems, because they can sit there and they can watch you go through it, but they're not really going to be in it with you at the same level. So yeah.
I mean, I'll respond if I love you, right? I'm here to respond and do my thing,
thrilled
right?
about that.
Yeah, I'll respond.
Like,
if
I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
facts.
here.
Fact. I mean, I'm around.
We have Channel of Preservation. We have Channel of Preservation. Well, I mean, if you're dying, we'll help you.
Yeah, I'll stop the blood flow.
Yeah, I'm holding space. Like, I'm here. But I don't know what more do you want from me right now?
I mean, that's what it feels like. I will be like crying and just like in it. My husband's just like, they're there. It's like he's an alien that doesn't know what like real life Earth problems are.
Like, can't compute.
They're there, fellow human.
It's the thing.
You guys are kind of aliens.
It has water coming out of its eyes. What does that mean? Yeah, I mean, I feel that. I mean, it's just like, okay, you're gonna be. I promise you. I think it's something that's coming from like that viewpoint that we have on the roof, right? Like,
yeah,
I promise you. I promise you, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah,
it sucks currently. How long is it gonna suck? Okay, now you're asking too many questions.
Yeah,
like, I don't know, but I promise you, it's gonna be fine. Like, trust me on this. But no, I'm. It is a kind of an alien aspect that we have. Is just like, oh yeah, you're going. Okay, hi, okay.
Yeah.
Are we done? It's fine. It's good. So on behalf of all of our 6 lines, I mean, that's what we do.
You have emotionality though, at least. Like,
yeah,
I feel like I feel cold. I'm like, oh, that sucks.
I mean, there's a certain certain coldness even in the emotionality of it, right? Because it's like, you've disturbed me and got me off the roof, and it's like, okay, this is exactly what's going on right here. This is what you need to do. This, okay, can I go?
Yeah.
It kind of feels that
Yeah.
way at sometimes. Like there are days that, I mean, plug your ears, but there are days that like I'll have some coaching clients coming. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, we're doing this today?
Mhm.
Okay.
That's
And it's
so
not that I
real
don't
as an
want to.
emotional being, though. Like we don't get to decide our moods, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. I mean, because I mean, as an emotional being, you'll wake up and you're pissed off for no reason.
Yeah.
And why am I pissed off? I have no reason to be pissed off. I just am. And it's about not resisting it and just kind of accepting it. And the big thing is like realizing that acceptance doesn't necessarily mean you're condoning it or that you like it or you even enjoy it. It's just radical acceptance of what's just sitting in front of you in your reality. That's it.
Mm.
Yeah.
That 6 line of acceptance theme. And I can
Yep.
see why 6 lines are associated with optimism too, because it's, again, you're going to get through this. You're going to be okay. I know it doesn't feel like it right now. And I think that's why sometimes it can feel like he is alien to me if he's not really in it with me. And he also has his own emotional wave that he has to deal with too. And so there's that piece of it. But yeah, it was just it was the way that Jonah described it was something that I could not describe.
Yeah.
And it was something that I was
Mm.
feeling in my relationship. And I thought there was something wrong with our relationship because of that. And I think that's also where some of the emotion came from, was like, it's okay. You're married to a 6 line that's on the roof right now. Like, this is just how it is right now. And you're also, hopefully, if we both survive long enough, going to see him come off the roof and actualize and all of that. And that'll be really cool too. But yeah, I don't know if anybody out there is not a 6 line and in relationship with a 6 line, if you can resonate and feel the same way, because it was cracked me open.
The absolutes. It's just like you have to be able to, are you okay with this? And when I had Andy listen to that lecture, I was like, are you okay with the fact that I'm just on vacation? And then I talked to my business partner about it. You know, I was like, hey, here's this perspective about me that I think it would be important for you to know, because this isn't changing right anytime soon.
Yeah.
Like
I
am
need to
on
hear this
vacation.
lecture from Jonah.
Yeah, it's are you in Signpost?
I am.
Okay,
it's
it's
in the
lines.
Yeah, listen to the 6 line lines one.
Yeah,
Consider that done.
and
Absolutely.
have your
lines course is
fiance
great.
listen to it.
What's your
good.
fiance's profile?
He's a 4-1.
Oh yeah,
okay.
4-1. You said that. Okay.
Yeah.
So
and
that has
innocence
MG.
motivation.
and that has its own stuff.
Yeah.
Poor thing. He stays in a level of exhaustion that I've seen next to no. And I'm like, I understand where the exhaustion comes from, because all that networking that he has to do, and he gets the same thing that we were talking about earlier, where people are always calling him and asking him and talking, and he's like, I just want to rest. I'm just exhausted. I don't want to. And he's like, but they're always magnetized to me. And I'm like,
yeah.
you want me? You want the good news or the bad news?
Imagine that on the roof. Imagine that and being on the roof. That's me.
Oh,
that's what I'm experiencing. It's constant. Like
Speak of the devil.
Lots of hugs.
Speak of the devil.
Speak of the devil. There he is.
Does he know we were talking about him?
He does not. He just happened to come in. It's so interaction as well.
Yeah.
A 4
Yeah.
line.
But
what are you up to?
yeah,
What are you doing?
It's just feeling that like he correct all the time.
Hey.
But I can't imagine what that feels like as a 4-6, just to have that churn all the time. I would go. That is why that 2 feels so great to me, because I'm like, ooh, and throw short as a bonus, throw short in there for me, and we are solid. Like, because I can find 2 time anywhere. Throw me a pair of headphones in, and I will create alone time. Or throw YouTube in front of me, and everything will just cease to exist, right? But you put a nice shore in front of me, put a door behind me,
done,
and break that, and we are solid. He'll be like, "How come you have to come out of the bedroom all day?" I'm like, "I haven't." "No, you haven't been out here all day. Are you mad at me?" "No, I'm in here chilling." And it's like, of course he has to call me out, right?
Yeah.
It's time to interact. It's time to interact with the world again, babe. And I'm like,
I want a sign on the door that says "hermiting in progress."
Yeah.
Yes, please. Like, and it needs to be the size of the door too, right? Yeah.
Even a real shore for me. I'll like, when we go on vacation, my husband's very active and I'm not. And so I just want to lay in the sand for like 7 days. And he's like, and I'm like, I'm the happiest. You just leave me here. Just
Go do
there's
everything you want to.
there's nobody bothering me. There's nobody everybody knows it's like a real vacation, but I'm like trying to mimic that in real life for the next, 13, 14 years.
Yeah, just bring me food. Just bring me food. Knock on the door twice and lay the food there and leave. It's fine. But yeah, no, I totally get you there, 100%. Because I could sit there. I mean, I've been known. He'll call me. He's like, "You haven't been over to see me in like 4 days." I'm like, "What? You haven't. We've talked. We've been on the phone. We FaceTime, or you've met me for lunch, and that's been about all I've got of you." I'm like, "Shit. Okay, I hear you. I'm coming."
I hear you. I'm coming.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting because the 6th line is on the roof, but it doesn't mean that y'all are dissociated and I mean, that can be a shadow of the 6th line, perhaps.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're not involved at all. It just means that you're not involved in the same way that the rest of the profiles are. You don't have that same capacity for trying something new, or it's more of like you would rather watch and give feedback if people ask, but you don't necessarily want to jump in,
Not at all. And I don't
like,
know.
I did that enough.
Yes. And I don't know what the other side of this, coming down off the roof looks like. I have no idea what that experience is going to be. But I'm like, right now, I can see no other way of life, right? I can look back, growing up when I was in the 3 phase of life, and I'm like, how the hell did I survive?
Yes. Every 6th line I've talked to, they're like, I don't know how I survived.
Like, I've had the question asked, if you could go back to your high school and do it all over again, no, absolutely not. There's not one part of me that would make me go back that direction. Like, what happened has happened. I don't want anything. Like, I'm good. I have everything in here that I'm trying to turn up and turn over into wisdom. But I'm good over here.
It's like, I survived. I'm good. Like, I did the naked and afraid or naked and alone or whatever in the woods. Did that. We're good. I lived.
I got what I needed from that.
Got what I
Yes,
needed.
don't call me back to the reunion show and let's no, I'm good.
Nope. I'm no contact. I'm no contact with that part of my life.
Absolutely. Yes.
I have set a boundary with my past.
I love that. That is 100% that. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going on a while. We should probably wrap this up. Our coffee talks are known for being long, so
yeah. But I mean,
grab some coffee and let's talk.
Yeah, I'm like,
some coffee.
Cheers. I feel like that's, especially as emotionals, I'm like, we're just getting warmed up. Like an hour in, we just get warmed up at that point. And that's what I love about Coffee Talk. It's these long, drawn out conversations where it really does. I feel like if I was listening to this, I would just feel like a fly on the wall of us all having coffee together and hanging out. There isn't this like structure to it. We just go where the conversation wants us to go. And
one of the reasons we decided to pull it off of Instagram too was just so we could get a little bit more intimate without somebody popping on and, oh wait, don't say anything about that because who knows.
Oh gosh, it's like it's that whole phase of like, you shouldn't say this. I'm like, listen, there's so much 5 line floating around in my setup that I cannot not say something heretical, even if I don't mean it.
Right.
Like I'm like, if you're not going to say anything, it's going to be controversial. You're just going to be good. There will be something that I say inevitably that just pops out and you're like, I can't believe you just said that. I'm like, well, I mean, is it wrong? I'm not wrong though. So
well,
did you die?
Did you die?
Yeah. And okay, Larry, do you have any more hot takes that we did not discuss so far?
Oh gosh, I got plenty of hot takes. I just don't know.
What's your favorite?
Your audience. What is my favorite? My favorite is that we teach human design backwards.
Okay.
Yeah, we teach it completely backwards.
We talked about this during our tarot.
Yes.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yes. So we go, energy type, strategy, and authority, and then it's pretty much where we leave people off. And we wonder why people are stuck in the deconditioning. Like for me, the deconditioning process does not take 7 years. It takes 7 years because we leave stuff out. And it should go for me, energy type, learn that good, strategy and authority, then go into pure PHS stuff. Because if you're not in the right environment, if you don't have the right view, if you don't have the right perspective, if you don't have all that good stuff, then of course you're going to spin straight into not self, because you're in places and environments with people and things that are not correct for you. But if you know your PHS, and a lot of people are like, I don't know my birth time. Sorry. Hopefully there's something that we can kind of figure out or do about that.
Rectification's a thing.
Yeah. So, but it's like, you have to know what your cognition is. You have to know what your view is. You have to know what your environment is. And the moment you know those things, you can actually look around. You can be like, oh shit, I'm not in the right environment. I've spun into frustration, and it's almost working in tandem with your strategy and authority. How are you making the right decisions for yourself if you're not in an environment that promotes the right decisions being made?
So,
And
go for it.
Okay, I will say that 2 things. I've never opened up someone's chart and not told them those things almost immediately. Second, even if you know your environment and your motivation and all of those things, you can't make them happen. The mind will try to make them happen. You still are strategy and authority through, like, I'm aware of my environment. Was I living in my environment? No. Did I know for 4 years, almost 5 years, that I was in the wrong environment? Yes. But I couldn't, I still waited to respond to get out of that environment.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, to play devil's advocate, or at least, like, I agree with you, Larry, but to play devil's advocate, I think the reason that they don't teach variable right away is because it can be confusing if somebody's like so in their mind and doesn't even know what their strategy and authority feels like. They could be like, oh, well, I'm shores environment, but I live in a desert. I need to move to the beach right now because this is what it said. It's like, who knows? People could. But then I'm also like, well, if that's the experience they're meant to have, then they're going to have that experience. To me, like, you just can't keep people from learning things. And maybe there's a way that's like some people deem as a better way to teach the system. But at this point, all of the information is out there. So when Brandy and I did our training with James Alexander, he actually had us weave in motivation and cognition into a foundational, not self-reading. Yeah. And so, wouldn't necessarily be like foundation, but he did teach us how to kind of do that if we wanted to do it into a foundation reading. So yeah, I think there is a way that it can be taught that is not confusing. And even if somebody is like still very much in their mind, which like we all are, let's be honest, it's not like you just like retire the mind at any point. Like I sometimes I say that and I'm like, what do you mean by that? But still, I would say getting caught in their mind and not in that conversation with their body yet, and still learning to be in conversation with the body, then I can see how that could just like make things more confusing. But I do think it's important.
And that's why I say you have to, the placement of strategy and authority being at the forefront, right? That is tantamount. That's important, right? But it would be a matter of getting someone locked in there, making sure that they understand. It took my cousin, who you've been teaching design to, it's taken her 3 years to learn what her sacral feels like.
That's pretty typical.
And she finally had the aha moment, like last Thursday when we were talking, and it was almost, she's just a pure generator. She was like, why didn't you just say that at first? I'm like, I did. I said that in like 50 different ways. She's like, yeah, but you didn't say it this way. I'm like, okay. But she finally felt it, and she's responding to everything. And she's even like, as we're texting or talking, she's like, will you say it to me in a this or that, yes or no question type way? And I'm like, yes, I will. And she's like, this is so creepy. And I think the big thing for her has been trying to make the sacral response make sense. Because it never, in my experience, makes a damn bit of sense until I'm like hindsight and looking at it. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
but like the moment I get a response and I'm like going that direction, I'm like, but why though?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, emotional
and
authority
it's
is the same way too, right?
yes, yes, it
You're
is.
like,
Good
I've
God.
always been getting clarity over time. I've
Hmm.
always been riding my wave. I just didn't have conscious awareness of it before, or I wasn't giving it um or the spaciousness that it needed, or I wasn't giving myself permission to do that, but it was always working. Maybe I made a decision before I had clarity, but I still got the clarity. I just got it after I made the decision.
Uh-huh.
So it's like,
I
it's not
mean,
like it's broken.
no, I mean, even to give someone listening just a peep into what that looks like, I realize that the way my wave is set up, it can set itself up into a nice little pattern. So I'm in my current 9 to 5 job, and I'm looking back, and I'm like, oh, when I left my job previous to this, it was an emotional decision. I wanted out, and this other job came as a savior. Oh my God, I'll take it. Yes, 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 yes. But I was emotional when they offered me this position, and I didn't say, let me think about it. I didn't negotiate. I didn't do anything. There's a way out. Yes, yes, yes. And then I said, has this been happening the entire time? And I looked through every single job that I have, and everyone has been an emotional jump instead of saying, let
Wow.
me wait on this. And then I always end up in this same spot in every job that I'm in. I'm so unhappy. I'm so done with it. I don't want to do this anymore. And then I'm looking for something to jump off to. So now I started looking, for something to jump off to. And I was like, oh, you have awareness now. You have awareness of the pattern. What do you do with awareness of the pattern? You wait.
You wait. That's something that I've said to Brandy a number of times. If I think something is going to save me or fix everything, then it is an emotional decision.
Mm-hmm.
You do not make a decision because you're like, this is going to fix everything. This is going to save me. It's clarity feels like calm warmth and like comfort. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel like, oh my God, okay, yeah, this is going to fix everything.
It's not excitable at all. It's not. It doesn't have those big those high notes in the song, right? It's just a song that's really mellow and just stays right here. It stays right in the pocket the entire time. But anytime you start getting like the song's building and it's got this crescendo and this high note, yeah, you're in emotion right there. And that's why those songs make us feel the way that they make us feel because they hit. But those people are like, oh, I don't like to listen to Tracy Chapman because their songs just stay right here. But they do, but they do want to listen to Whitney and they want to listen to Mariah, who are two of my favorites, because the song is going somewhere. It's going up, 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 and it's going to hit somewhere. That's emotion. That's why they evoke emotion, and that's the same way that the clarity feels in your body. You don't want a song that stays right here. That's boring. I don't want anything. So we're always seeking emotion too, right? As emotional beings, we're always seeking emotion, even if we don't realize that we're seeking it. Because let's face it, whether it's a feel good big emotion or whether it's a bad feel good emotion, emotions are fun.
We want to feel
The
things.
wave is, the waves are fun. We're either going to surf on the wave or we're going to fall off the surfboard and knock our head on the rock in the ocean. But make no mistake, the wave's fun, even if it don't necessarily feel like it.
It's exciting. Even when you're in
Yes.
the sadness and in the crash and in the drama of it all, it is exciting. There's a part of us that's relishing in that.
Mm-hmm. And that's where the parts work comes in, recognizing that part of you that is, what part of me actually enjoys this and gets a benefit from this.
Right. Or
And,
likes
yeah.
dealing with the crisis of leaving my job and an emotional decision.
Right.
Yeah, I'm there right now too.
Like, ooh, this would be exciting. I'm gonna fuck my world up.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's been a little
hello.
boring. It's been a little boring.
Yeah,
So
let's
let's
shake
just throw
things up.
some
Yeah,
water in the oil.
And that's the thing about the emotional center too. People don't realize like how much that doesn't make sense. Because I'm like, for all intents and purposes, I have the job of all jobs. 100% insurance paid for. I pay for nothing out of pocket. I work from home 100% of the time. I'm in my office. I'm doing laundry. They don't care what you do as long as you get the work done. I have no reason to be unhappy at this job on the surface. But I entered into it incorrectly. So now I can look at it in retrospect and be like, well, shit, I entered into it incorrectly. So eventually the high was going to wear off.
And this is a really good example of how the mind could enter into something, because your body is just saying like, this isn't satisfying for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the mind is like, but you have insurance and you have this and you have that. But
Yep.
on paper, this is all great. And, you know, maybe, and this is something that I do feel like sacral types have to learn to deal with, is waiting for the next thing to respond to. You know, even when we recognize that we're in something that's incorrect, you still got to wait for something else to show up in the right timing and have that actual response to it.
And we never believe is, you know, that thing that we're looking for is going to actually show up. No matter how many times it shows itself that it will, we have this selective short-term memory loss that we don't believe it. So like, I mean, I was in a 9.5-year relationship before I met my fiance. And I thought, especially in the depths of the breakup and the moving apart and all that good stuff, and I'm, oh my God, no one's ever going to love me. No one's ever going to see me. I was there. I was there for some years. And when I was not looking, as much as that old, you know, adage is, you know, I don't want to sound that, but when I wasn't looking is when he walked in. And there's a lecture that Ra has on manifesting generators, amazing 3-parter. And he says, we don't believe in the wait that Prince Charming is going to come into our door, or that the job that we want is going to come to us, or this is going to come to us. But there's always something to respond to. Always. And the moment we try to stop controlling the responses is the moment that we free up the energy to actually bring things to us. And what I'm recognizing now in this faux kind of job searchy place that I'm in is that I have no pull to go look for a new job. I want to, I'm unhappy, I'm unsatisfied, I want to do something about it, but there's nothing to do. And in doing nothing, everything will get done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it can be that simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Sacral wisdom right
Mic
there.
drop. Absolutely. So, I mean, it's relishing the wait. And the wait, absolutely, I won't even lie to anybody listening. I don't care what energy type you are. The wait portion of it sucks.
But it's
And no one
Because-
can escape
so
it.
rewarding.
Yes.
So rewarding to wait.
Yeah, even
I mean, 'cause I
manifestors
would've-
have to wait.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I would have never in a million years, that man is sitting in the other room. I was on every dating app you could find. I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm done with this. This is over. And I had nothing to respond to. Right. Everyone, I was like, no. And one night I'm up at 4 a.m. and I'm deleting every app in frustration. Just get this off my phone. And I fall asleep with the phone on my chest. One app remaining on my phone. I wake up in the morning and there's a message from him. And I'm like, fine. And I actually had a yes response. I was like, fine, I'll respond to it. He probably isn't real anyway, but I'm steadily responding. We went on our first date and
This
there
is
it is.
history.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it comes to you. It comes to you if you wait. I promise you.
Mm-hmm.
Everything comes
Amazing.
if you wait.
Yes, it does. and allowing yourself to be kind of shocked or just blindsided by how you respond or what you respond to.
Mm-hmm.
Like even during the wait, and then you're like, whoa.
What is this?
What is this?
Yeah.
Like this trailer that I live in right now. I sent this to Teresa to try to get her to move here. And then I was
And she's
looking
like,
at
"Wait,
it and I was
want it."
like, wait a minute. What is going on in my body?
And you see, and again, that's that churn. It's always working. It is always playing in the background, whether we recognize that and that's coming from the three of us who read, human design, and we're completely immersed in this.
Yeah.
Nobody is exempt from the human experience. No matter how much you know, no matter how much you don't know, we can't deify anybody that has been a part of these experiences. Whether they've been in human design. I heard, Alec Diaz say something that he's been through his experiment now 3 times, for over 21 years, and there's still parts of deconditioning that he thought, oh my God, I dealt with this. They come right back up, and it's just a deeper layer of dealing with it. So if you're like, oh, I've dealt with the mom stuff before, I've dealt with this trauma before. Yeah, you have. Now there's a deeper level of it.
Now let's go into it further. It's it's just like healing.
It's a 7-year cycle. It doesn't mean at the end of the 7-year cycle you're deconditioned. It just means it's just that our deconditioning process is in 7-year cycles. So there will be something that wraps up at the end of that cycle, and then a new one starts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is, like you said, is just like the healing journey. It is the exact same. People are looking for this is the end point of healing. This is, when am I done healing? When you are put into a box or burned and put into the ground, or your ashes scattered. That is when you're done here. But there's no end point for healing or deconditioning. You just are. And it's about accepting this is just my current reality right now.
I would say that's a deconditioning win, is that you are just more comfortable in your body and in reality, perhaps.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that's a marker of somebody that's maybe been in their process for quite a while. And I've felt that, at different conferences, and, interacted with different people that have been in their experiment for a long time. And they just seem to have such a relaxed presence, because they're just kind of like, whatever happens, happens. It's that kind of frequency. And I would say that I'm not there all the time, but I've touched into that feeling quite a bit. And I feel like I spend time there. And it's a really lovely place to be, that like, even when there's crisis or there's challenge or there's struggle, there's still a calmness to you. And it might not look calm, especially as emotional beings. We're so animated and we're so like, but there's still this underlying frequency of acceptance, no matter what it is.
Absolutely. You can either fight against it, or you can just accept what is.
Yeah.
And it's the story that my mom tells of, when she knows how to swim, but she got into a place that the water was way too deep, and she felt like she was drowning, and she forgot everything that she knew. And someone picked her up. Her cousin actually came to try to save her, and he's a big burly guy, and she was drowning him because she was resisting what was happening. And then someone literally just picked her up and tossed her by the waist, and they said, "Stand up," and she stood up. And she recognized she wasn't even in deep water that entire time.
Wow.
But she almost drowned someone because she was in active resistance, right? She almost killed herself and somebody else. So it's just about, if she had just taken a second, and it's hard in those kind of situations, and just got back in her body and just let take you under, she could have began swimming and going somewhere.
And I think that's what the no choice, I think that reminds me of kind of how I feel the no choice is really all about in human design, is like, you are in this situation, maybe the choice is resistance or not, like resisting it or accepting it. If we do have a choice, that's what it would be. But you can't help being in that situation. You can't help that it's raining or there's a tsunami or whatever. And there's like layers to that teaching of no choice or whatever. But I do think we have a choice, and resist or accept
or surrender.
Absolutely.
You surrender, you put your feet down, you're like, oh, I can touch.
Yeah. Might not be the choice you necessarily like or want, but there's a choice. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh my God, I could talk to you guys forever.
I know. I'm like that we could talk for another hour just about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should probably wrap up, though. We're 2 hours in here. Larry, what a pleasure. We'll have to have you back on at some point. I mean, you're going to be a repeat guest.
Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you, guys.
Where can people find you?
They can find me if you find me on social media, I suck, but you can find me on Instagram at officially_Larry. If you send a message, it might be 3 weeks before I see it. The best place to get me is, email me, Larry@paralarry.com, or just go over to paralarry.com and you can find me there. Shoot me an email, book a reading, say hey. I like making new friends. And yeah, those are the best ways to get me. Social media being at the bottom of that list.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Being on Human Design Coffee Talk.
Thank you for having me.